Okay, welcome to the JA Titan training. The first thing we are going to talk about is the curriculum. So Titan is 5 visits to the classroom, and you should work with your teacher in most communities to set up your visit dates. Some of you have visit dates already set up, but a lot of you had to work with your teacher. So just know, please, if you have to work with your teacher to set dates, once you have them set, let me know when they are, or whoever your JA contact is. So if you're teaching this fall, you should have already received this information, but this is our South Dakota suggested outline. The reason it's the South Dakota suggested outline is because USA has broken this program up into 11 visits, and a lot of the visits are the same thing, just done in a different way. So we've taken all that information and combined it into 5 visits. So this is what you're going to need. So you'll receive this via email. Please print this out and bring it to class. You can see on the very first page, we tell you exactly what the topics are that you're going to be covering each visit. So if it's bolded, that just means it's one of the 11 programs that USA has. And you'll also notice that for every single visit, you'll be talking for a little bit, and then there will always be gameplay at the end. So every lesson, we want you to talk for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we want the students to jump on the simulation, which I'll go through after. One of the best things about this platform is it is super easy to play a game yourself and practice. I would highly recommend playing this as much as you can before you teach this program, because then you'll know what works, what doesn't, and kind of understand what the students are going through right away when you're showing this for the first time. So right here on the bottom of our first page is how to play a single player game. You'll just play against computers, but I do highly recommend playing that. The next page is how to set up a game. So step-by-step written instructions for you on how you can set up a competition game for in class. So if you don't remember, please reference this. And then at the bottom, we have how students should log in and find the game that you created to play. When students play in class, we do recommend that they pair up, anywhere 2, 3, maybe even 4 students, but generally 2 or 3 works best to play against each other. However, if you want students to play individually, let us know and we can give you more student logins. Okay, on to visit 1. So you're coming into the classroom for the very first time. One thing you're going to want to do when you get into the classroom for the very first time is you're going to want to talk about yourself. So introduce yourself, your name, your company, what a day-to-day looks like for you at your job. Because the great thing about junior achievement is it is taught to volunteers who are from the community, who have tons of different careers. So throughout their K-12 experience, anytime they have JA, they get to be introduced to a different career, and maybe your career is something that they've never heard of or have never been introduced to. So please take time to talk a little bit about yourself. Then we just have some icebreaker questions. Depending on how much time you want to talk, you can do 1 or you can do all 4. And then we're going to start getting into the simulation explanation and kind of what JA Titan is and how you are going to be working with the simulation to teach them over the next 5 visits. You'll notice a ton of time through the guidebook, we say something like, facilitator guide pages 7 through 13, facilitator guide pages 78 through 20, whatever. I'm going to tell you that this document we're referring to is ginormous. So we've put a ton of the talking points in the guide itself, but you will need to access it at some point. So for this first one, you're literally going to spend most of the time just teaching students about the simulation, because although it's pretty turnkey once you get into it, it will take the full 20 minutes or so simply just to do exactly what I'm going to teach you today and go through what every single button does, how they're supposed to make decisions, etc. So that's going to be your first visit. And then if they feel like they've got it, you can do gameplay as time allows. So that's going to be really up to you. If you're going to take 5 minutes to explain the simulation, they're going to have more gameplay. But if you really want them to understand the decisions they're making, maybe you spend a little more time on the simulation just going through it, and then less time for them actually to play a game. So session 2, again, you're going to have to get that facilitator guide. This is all about price and production. So every lesson, we're going to learn something more about decisions we make in the simulation. Then we're going to do gameplay. So the first visit or the second visit is all about price and production. And you can see it's found on Facilitator Guide, pages 55 to 58. This document we cannot email to you because it is so large. So in the email, if you're teaching fall, you would have gotten a link that says click here to a Dropbox where the facilitator guide is located, and you can find it there. And then you can print off the whole thing, or you can print off the pages you need. I do have it pulled up, so we'll look at that in just a minute, but just know we've tried to make it super easy for you to find the facilitator guide because we do need you to access it at points. Then once you're done talking about price and production, you're going to do gameplay. Again, we usually recommend that you talk for 15 to 20 minutes, but you can kind of look over the information and decide how long you want to talk versus how much gameplay you want them to have. Usually high school classes are about 50 minutes in the classroom. Visit 3 is going to be all about research and development and marketing. So for the first 25 minutes, again, we've got that facilitator guide that you're going to need to access. We've got a video if you want to show it. We really take a deep dive into research and development and why it is so important. Because if you are providing a product that no one wants, no one is going to buy it. And you can't have a successful business until you've done that research and development to figure out exactly what do people want. And you've created a prototype. There's going to be some vocab along the way. We give you lots of talking points for this one, advantages and disadvantages. Here's that vocab that we want you to go over with students. We talk about marketing to make sure that they understand that even if we have a great product, if it's not pushed out, no one's going to buy it. So a lot of good talking points, but we do throughout that lesson give you facilitator guide pages where you can access more information if you want. Visit 4 is all about CSR, or corporate social responsibility. So why is this important? You'll notice in the game, it doesn't affect your profit or loss very much. So students really need to take this time to learn how it is very beneficial to companies when they give their employees benefits or they donate some volunteer time. You can talk about JA in this moment, how we have tons of companies across the state that give their employees volunteer hours so they can come teach JA. Once you're done talking about CSR, again, then you're going to have that time to play the game with students. The more they play it, the better they're going to get and the more they're going to want to play. So I can tell you, visit 1, it's not very much time, but visit 2, visit 3, 4, they're going to want to play more and more and more. And then session 5, you've kind of talked about all the specific pieces of the simulation. So you're just going to kind of do an overview of everything. And this lesson is going to be a lot less talking. So you're probably only going to talk for about 10 minutes total. And then we want most of the time to be on the simulation because this is where they're going to really get to practice. We host a statewide competition every fall and every spring for any student who has completed the JA Titan program. So that will be held December 14th. So this is going to be their practice before the competition. So we really want them to get lots and lots of practice on the simulation so they can be ready if they want to participate. So that is it. Again, it's kind of 50% talking, 50% simulation, but depending on what lesson you're on, you'll have more talking or less talking. I did pull up the facilitator guide via the Dropbox link. As you can see, it's 182 pages. So it's a lot of information. This is all 11 sessions of JUSA content just rolled into one. So this is why we just don't give you this and say, okay, go forth and conquer, because it is very, very overwhelming. So please stick to that South Dakota guide, and we will help make sure that it's a little easier to navigate the curriculum that way, because we give you specific pages. Okay, any questions on the curriculum? Okay, one thing that I did want to tell you before we jump into the simulation is when you are about to teach, so if you're teaching this fall, you should have received this, we send you student logins. The teacher gets these so they can cut them out. It goes through the exact steps that the students need. So where to go, how to log in, their username, their password, how to click on the game. So just know your teacher should have these in the class. They're going to be color coded based on the class that you're in. So if you always have blue, make sure your sheet's always blue, because that probably means that your teacher has more than one section, and we want to make sure that they keep them in order. So if you need anything, again, just let us know. We give you 16 logins. However, if you're like, no, we want our students to be on their own, that's totally fine. And you have 20 students, I can add more students to your class. So just let me know. Okay. Now we are going to jump into the simulation. It can kind of seem like a lot at first. But again, my biggest tip to you is I highly recommend practicing on your own and playing that single player simulation, because once you get into it, you'll realize it's really, really turnkey and super easy. Just there's a few decisions you have to make along the way. So to get started, you are going to go to jatitan.ja.org. Again, all these instructions are written in that volunteer guidebook. You're going to log in with JASA. You should have received a JASA password setup email. If you did not, let me know and I can help you reset your password. It's going to be, your username is the email JA has on file for you, and then the password is something you create. I don't have access to it, so if you forget, we will have to have you reset your password. There's nothing I can do. I can't find it for you, so just know. So we're just going to pretend like we're playing a single player game today. And that's how I'm going to show you how to make all the decisions. So if you're setting up a multiplayer game, you go to games and create new game. You type in whatever you want. I would make it very specific, like your teacher name, class period, visit 1, because your students are going to see all the games you create. So you need to make sure they're all playing the same game. Then we want to make sure both settings are on manual. We always want to do a custom game scenario or scenario game if you want like COVID or a natural disaster. I don't play that deep, but if you want to, you totally can. And then you get to decide how much cash on hand your students have. So the more cash, the easier it is. So generally I do $1 million or $2 million. The first time I'm playing, I always do 4 quarters, but the next time I'd probably do 8 or 12. Then you're going to simply select your class. I have a lot, obviously, because I can see the entire state. And this is so important, you guys. If you have taught in the past, or if you teach next year, you'll see every single Titan class across South Dakota is here for me. So you will see your classes from last year. So we need to always scroll way down. It should say 2023 at the end. So when you're picking your class, please, please, please make sure it ends with 2023. So I'm just gonna pick a class. All your students will be enrolled here. You can see I said for just the player name, JSD, the teacher's name. If they have more than one section, the first one will be A, the second one will be B, the third one will be C, and then fall. Then you should have up to 16 logins. They're not in order. It's kind of crazy, but the best practice is just to click this little square up here. That will add every single player. Doesn't matter if you're not going to use all 16 teams. We really just want you to add everyone. Then you're going to add the players. Always do players as company, and then you're just going to create a game. I'm not going to create it, but that's all you would do. Then your students will be able to see the game. So it's pretty simple. Again, all these instructions are in your volunteer guidebook, but it's pretty simple. But if you have questions, let me know, because you should practice setting up games as well. So let's get into the simulation. This is how you're going to play if you are a single player. You just go to dashboard and play the game. This screen does take a minute. The students will feel it, you'll feel it, so just let it run its course. And then if we were a student, we would do multiplayer, because our volunteer had already set up a game, but we're just going to play on our own, so we're going to play single player. The first thing we get to do is we get to pick our money. I like to make my life easy, so I'm going to do 2 million, and I'm going to only do 4 quarters so we can make it through a whole game so you can see what it looks like. Once I picked that, this basically just tells you that this simulation is where students get to be CEOs of a cell phone company. So they get to design a cell phone from scratch and decide what features it has, what markets they're going to market to, or have some marketing to. They really get to make all the decisions, what price it's at. And they want to make good decisions, because if they make good decisions, they get victory currencies. And that is how we determine a winner, because the USA competition, the national competition, bases it on victory currencies. So we have to model our state competition like that as well. So just because you have the most cash on hand doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the most victory currencies. Once we read all that, you get to create your company logo and your company name. So they get to do that. They can use these arrows to do the different designs. They can do different colors. Doesn't matter to us what they do. And then down here is their little like host who can help them out. If you're letting students figure out the simulation, because that is one of the ways you can choose to do it, I would leave this first time playing checked, because then the person will go through and say, okay, here's this button, here's what it does. However, since I'm going to show you today, and this is how I recommend it, I would uncheck that, click done. It will create my company, and then we're going to go through everything together. So you can see my little advisor down here. If I have questions, I can call her at any time. If I had left that first time playing checked, she would have popped up and started talking to me about what's on the screen. However, when I teach in class, I simply just have them go on there, and then I kind of walk them through all the steps. I usually have one on the smartboard so I can see it as well. So this is your very first screen. As you can see, the ones at the top, the budget, research and development, production, marketing and sales, and CSR, those are going to be where we're going to make our decisions. On the left-hand side of every screen, you're always going to see who is winning. So right now you can see none of us have made any money because no decisions have been made. In the middle, it's going to show us what we're spending on every single decision. So we can know, where is our money going? If we're not making money, or if we are, where is that going? Where are we spending our money? And then on the right-hand side is our overall budget. So you can move these, you can slide these any way you want. You'll see as I move some of them, the other ones are adjusted because we need to stay within a certain range. You'll see that some are darker versus lighter. That just means the dark is actually what I'm spending. The light is what I have room for. So you'll notice that throughout the end, I always like to just adjust to make sure that everything's back to where it should be. But you can just play with these for now. We want to make sure that we always start off with some money so we can make some decisions. But hopefully I'll go over at some point, and then I can show you how that works when you go over budget. So what I like to do, and once you play on your own, you can find your own groove, but I always start with research and development, and then make my decisions, and then make my production decisions, then make my marketing decisions, then make my CSR, just so I know I'm not missing anything. I'll use information from other tabs to make decisions, but just know that's how I do it, but you can find your best practice. Under every tab, you will see 3 sub-tabs. The report tab is where you're going to show what happened in the past quarters. So did you gain anything? Are people buying your stuff, etc. Labs, or we're going to have different names for the middle one, is if we're building extra factories or we want more workers to be producing for us, that's all going to be made here. I can tell you when you only do 4 or 8 quarters, it's not really worth building anything because you don't see the return on investment. However, if maybe that last game you're doing 12, 16 quarters, the students really can make a lot of money if they spend some first. They can move the operations up or down. This is basically just how much are they putting into building this phone. So you'll kind of see, let's just leave it at 3 right now. If I go to my features tab, I can see over here on the left hand or the right hand side that I have 3 teams allocated. But if I were to go back and do 4, now I have 4 teams allocated to my research and development. So I now get to make fun decisions. I don't have any research right now on what type of phone my customers are going to want, right? I have no idea. So on the left-hand side, you can see screen, antenna, camera, memory, processor, battery. I'm not really sure what people are going to want, but let's just say I think people are going to want a screen because that's what I like in my phone. Then I can add teams allocated to doing this research and development. You can see now I've allocated 1 team out of 4, and I'll have a new screen in 3 quarters. If I allocate more teams to it, I've allocated 3 teams to just doing research on a screen, and they are going to develop me a brand new screen. Since it says done in 1 quarter, I know next quarter I'm going to have a brand new screen. This tells me, this research cost tells me it's going to cost $45,000. But I only have 75% of my teams allocated. So let's just say maybe I'm going to put 1 into a camera. So it won't be done next quarter. It'll be done in 3 quarters. However, I know that hopefully maybe people are going to want a better camera. At the top, it always tells you your budget for that specific tab. So you can see my research and development budget that I set in the very first one is 288,000. And I'm spending about 120. So I've got some extra money left over that will be reflected. If I go back to my budget tab, you can see this is where my budget's at, but the dark is what I'm actually spending. So I'm not spending all my money. So then I did my research and development. So now I'm going to move on to production, right? This is how many phones I'm going to make, what price I'm going to set them at, etc. So reports, again, there's nothing there because we haven't had any quarters. Factories, again, it's how many phones do we think I'm going to need? So right now I only have the capability to make 6,000 phones. So maybe I say, you know what, I'm a new company, I'm just going to leave it at that. But maybe if I start selling out, I'm going to bump that up to 8,000. Production is, okay, I can make up to 6,000, which you can see my unit capacity down here, but I'm only producing 1,680 right now. If I move that up, that number will go up. If I make a bad decision and try and make a ton of phones, you can see I got a negative little thing. I've now gone over budget. Everything's red. I can always drag that down and everything will kind of balance out again. But let's say I really want to make 87% of my phones. So I want to produce over 5,000. I would just go back to my budget tab. You can see that I am way overspent. So maybe I just have to up this and up my budget a little bit. You can adjust these slides. I'm going to go back down, so hopefully I don't get as many negative points. But if for the research and development, when we got our new screen, I'll show you next quarter, but it's going to pop up on the left-hand side here where it says phone features. It will tell me when I have a new phone feature. So we want to make sure we're adding that every time and paying attention. On the right-hand side, you'll notice you always start with an inventory of 1,400. So although I have the capacity to make 4,245 phones, I can actually sell a little more because I always start with 1,400 phones. Then I get to decide my price. It tells me that my cost is $115 and I'm selling it for $300. So my markup is $184. Let's say I'm like, I don't really have any features right now. I'm gonna bump that down to $278. Or I say, you know what? I think I have a pretty great phone. I'm gonna bump it up to $330 and just see. Then we're going to go to marketing and sales. This is going to be where we're going to do our marketing to different people. So again, no really details on the reports tab. Branches are going to say how much marketing do we want to do and how much do we want to spend on our operating costs. I like to do 3 or 4 usually, generally, but again, you can kind of feel it and play it on your own and see. So the top 2 are all going to be research. So this is going to be what features this demographic wants. And the second decision is going to be how much they want to spend on a phone. Now we only have 3 teams allocated, and I know I want to do some advertising. And I would reiterate to the students, you cannot make a decision unless you have something in advertisement, because you have to be able to sell your phones. And by doing that, you have to advertise your product. So let's just say I'm going to start with demographic A. I'm going to see what kind of features they want. I'm going to see what price, but I'm going to advertise them as well. You can see I've now allocated 100% of my team, so I can't make any more decisions. I obviously went over budget, so I'm going to go back to my budget tab. I specifically drug that one down so you can see. And we're just going to allocate a little more money to marketing. Now, let's say I want to change at any time. I definitely can. You can diversify and maybe do, you know, 1 at A, 1 at B, 1 at C. But I like, if I'm going to market to someone or advertise to someone, I want to see what type of phone they want. Again, at the top, it'll tell me my budget and how much I'm spending. And that all teams are allocated. Then lastly, we have our CSR. Again, there's no reports right now. And this one only has 2 tabs. All my people are really mad right now. I do not have very happy employees, so I got to fix that. You can drag, they turn gray, then they turn green when they're happy. You see, I got a victory point. I got some happy points. And it's totally up to students. A lot of students drag until they're green. Some want to spend a little more. It's totally up to them. They can also select a cause to give to and an effort to support. That does not affect the game, but some students are a little more passionate about it, so they want to decide on that. So that's our decisions. Then before you do anything, you're going to go back to your budget tab and kind of look at our budget. You can see a lot of times we're going to just have to drag this back so everything's aligned. And then we have 3 tabs on this page. If you want to deal with the loans, you can. I do not. I have not ever. Our games are pretty quick, so it's just not really worth it. But if you want to get into it or talk about it, feel free. We always want to look at our projections tab before we hit next quarter. We want to see what our expenses are, what our revenues are going to be. You can see we can alter our price right from here, and then we just have to hit set. Maybe we don't want to make quite that many phones. It tells us about how many phones we should make, what our markup price is. So this just gives you a really good snapshot of what decisions you've made. Then when we think we're all done, we just hit next quarter. If nothing is wrong, it will simply say, are you sure you want to end this quarter? Yep, you confirm it, and then it will go through all the decisions you made. If you don't want or don't care to know, you can simply hit skip. I really like to see, so I know I produced almost 4,000 phones, and I sold a little over 4,000. So I've got exactly 1,300 in inventory. Then it's going to go through how much I spent on everything. So how much I spent on R&D, production, marketing, and CSR. And we can see that I made money. So I made a little over 600,000. If I lost money, it would be red. If you're building more buildings, etc., you probably will lose money right away, but then hopefully gain it in the end. So that was kind of our snapshot of quarter 1. Then we really get to have some fun because we've now got, okay, we see how much cash on hand everyone's got. We can go to research and development and we see, okay, no one else has a feature except me because I did that screen. If I go to marketing and sales, I can see the information that I wanted. I can see advertised to demographic A and they bought 80% of my phones. So we can start seeing a lot more information. This is the price of everyone's phone. So I had the highest priced phone and I still am, sold the most. So that's something that they're going to want to look at between all their companies. So what I do then is I simply go back and make all my decisions. You'll see sometimes along here, there'll be events. Because I had that corporate social responsibility, I've got happy employees, I got public praise. Those are those two little green things that popped up. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that we're having happy employees. You'll see if I really overwork my employees, I'll get negative feedback, and then my budget will have one event and it'll say strike, like employees don't want to work under current conditions. So we want to make sure, and you can talk to students, that we're always treating our employees kindly and with respect, and we're not overworking them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and make decisions again. So I looked at the reports. I'm the only one with a feature, so I'm going to want to make sure to add that. Now I'm going to go back and say, okay, I have the screen, but you know what? I did do a little bit of research with my demographics. So I'm going to see what they want. So I'm going to go back to my reports and see. You can find it two places. Demographic A, it says they want the screen, the memory, and the processor. Okay, and they'll pay $300 to $800 for this phone. That's good to know. Or if I went back to this tab, it'll tell me last quarter what it said. So either way is fine. So I know I got the screen, so that's good. No one said the camera though, and demographic A is buying most of my stuff. So you know what? This time I'm gonna maybe do the memory, because I know they really want the memory. So I'm gonna devote all my stuff to memory. You can see that it remembered my decision of the camera. I'm going to take that away, and I'm going to do the processor, because I know that's what's important to demographic A. And if they're buying 80% of my phones, that's who I'm going to want to please. So now we've got all that. So we're going back to production. So this is the price of the phone. You can see the cost of the markup, etc. So now I'm going to see over here my new feature. I'm not going to add it right now because I want you to see what happens if I were to forget to add it. So I'm not going to add it. You see my inventory has gone to 1,300. I didn't sell out of my phones, but I did make quite a few. So maybe we'll just bump this up just a little bit. Oh, I went over budget. So I got to go back to my budget tab, increase my budget, put a little more into my production tab. It's really just a trial and error, figuring out what we want. I have a new feature and I'm the only person with a new feature. So I'm going to bump up my price. And I know people are willing to pay up to $800. So we're going to go $415 for this phone and see if people will pay that price since it has a new screen. Then we're going to go into marketing and sales. Again, we kind of already know what these people want, and it can change throughout the game. So if I were to keep it, it wouldn't necessarily always be the same. I'm gonna maybe do a demographic B this time, but you know what? I think I'm gonna make this have 4 teams, because I really want to get my advertising out there. I want to do a little more advertising because I want to sell those phones. So demographic A is buying 80% of my phones. So I'm gonna put 2 of my teams allocated into them. One thing people do too, just so you know, so you don't constantly go over budget, is they just slide this way over here and get things as high as they can, and then we'll go back and adjust. However you find is best is totally fine. It doesn't matter. Just know that if you don't have as much cash on hand, it's good to kind of be more focused on your budget then. Okay, so we allocated our 4 teams, which is good. We're going to go to CSR. I want to make sure all my people are still happy. Maybe I put a little more money into CSR, so maybe I'm going to give people some more bonuses, or, maybe volunteer efforts, because I'm going to talk about how JA is really important. And we have over 2,000 volunteers across the state. And without some companies giving their employees time to volunteer, we might not have as many volunteers. So maybe I'm going to bump up that and talk a little bit about that. Then I've gotten everything. So I'm going to go back to my budget tab. I'm going to kind of see where all of my stuff's at, adjust my sliders, make sure my employees are still happy. And then I'm going to look at that projections. So you can see my expenses haven't really changed, but I am supposed to make a profit. So we're going to hit next quarter. You will notice that it says, are you sure you want it in this quarter? But since I forgot a step, it says new feature not being used. So remember how I got the new screen, but I didn't actually add it. So that tells me something is wrong. So I'm going to go back to my production tab. I have to click on the screen to add it and then click Gen 1 screen. Now that red went away. Since I fixed my budget ahead of time, I got to go back. But you always have to make sure that you are working with everything. So if you have a new screen, you have to click on it and get the Gen 1 screen to add it. Now that error message has gone away, so I'm just going to confirm and we're going to move on. So then we get to see, okay, how many did we produce? Because we moved it up a little bit. We raised our price. Are we still selling all our phones? Yep, it looks like we sold most of our phones. We've only got now 173 in inventory, so we're still selling pretty good. Tells me what I'm spending on everything, and since it's green, I'm making money. So this time I made a little over $1 million. So that's what you're going to do, and then you're going to repeat it again and again. So again, we have 4 events now, so I like to see, okay, we've still got some happy people, and I'm going to make the decisions again. So I would really, again, highly recommend that you play this multiple times so you can see what it's like. Just for time's sake, so you don't need to see me go through it again, I'm just going to skip this quarter. You can see new feature not being used and research teams unallocated. That means, again, something's wrong because I didn't make any decisions. You can still confirm and move on, but just make sure to tell the students that they need to be aware of that, because we want to make sure that they are using all their teams, that they're adding all their features, etc. So I must have made some good decisions because it looks like I made some money even though I didn't make decisions. So the one thing I do want to say is if this next quarter button is grayed out or like red, that means they're over budget or something is wrong. So you'll just have to have them look around to see, okay, did they make all the decisions? Are they over budget, etc. Okay, we're going to just skip because this is a 4-quarter game. It will let me know that it is the final quarter. So just in case students forgot, it will tell them that it is the final quarter. We're just going to skip all that because we don't need to see it. And once the game is over, this is what it will look like. So it will tell you your victory points. Again, this is how we judge the statewide competition and the national competition. So you can see the final results. I got 22 victory points, and it will go through. On profit, I got 6. Research and development, I got 4. So it kind of goes through them all. So make sure students don't skip this because, as you can see, it doesn't even tell me what I had for my return on investment, my cash on hand. I have no idea how much money my company made because that's not how you win this game. So just so you are aware, maybe before the last quarter, make sure students look at that. And that's how you play the game. Again, you're just making the same decisions over and over and over again. So it's not hard. It just takes time to learn. So what questions do you have on the simulation?
I have not. I've reached out to my teacher. I assume these are computer labs then, or do we know what the setup is? Each room's going to be different.
Yeah, so each room will be different. And Lance, your teacher is brand new this year, so I don't even know what his class looks like. So he's never had this program before, but my gut says the students generally will have like Chromebooks is how I've taught it in the past. I've never been to a computer lab, but I know some schools do have computer labs, but generally it'll either be a computer lab or they'll have Chromebooks. And again, we recommend that they work in like teams of 2 and 3. So you don't even need a Chromebook for everyone. You just need 16.
Okay, yeah, and I've reached out to him. We're going to try to get a Zoom meeting together here tomorrow or the next day to kind of go over some high level stuff, which is my other follow-up question, I guess, is I mean, none of this is, I'll say, confidential. I mean, we can share whatever we want to share with our teacher, maybe not send them the documents, but we can go over like your outline that you were presenting earlier
Yes.
and all this stuff. It's all
Yep, they can have
fair
access to
game.
anything,
Okay.
that you have access to, and especially with him being new, when you do meet, let me know if he has any questions. I'm happy to jump on when you guys are meeting too and talk through anything.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? And you might just need to get into it and play it and kind of look at the guide, etc., which is totally fine. So please make sure that if you have any questions at all, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are here for you. Like, we want to support you in any way possible. So just make sure if you have questions or you're frustrated on something, just let us know and we can probably help you out. Okay, that's all I had for my training on Titan. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and we're happy to help in any way we can.